Hey, I'm Mike Priest, the founder and CEO of Visible. As you scale your company, having the right guides at your side can make all of the difference. Each episode, we'll talk to fellow founders, investors, and experts. We'll dive into their zone of genius, as well as hear about their past mistakes to give you a better chance at success. This podcast is for founders by founders. This is The Founders Forward.
All right, Malcolm, first off, what's going on? Welcome. Would love to just hear a little bit more about your background, your story, and then give the 1-minute pitch on Alva Labs.
Sure. First of all, Clay, really nice to be on. Thanks for having me. Really exciting. So the quick, short background on myself. My name is Malcolm. I'm founder and CEO at Alva Labs, Stockholm, Swedish-based HR tech company. We're just pushing soon 5 years since we founded the company. Short background on myself, born and raised in Sweden, studied business and economics now 10, 12 years ago here in Stockholm, and have more or less since then been in some kind of early stage context ever since, like either founding my own company or early employee, or most recently before Alva, I spent a few years at the Swedish and sort of European PE and venture fund EQT, where I also met my two co-founders, and then 4.5 years ago, jumped ship and started Alva. The 1-minute pitch on Alva is really sort of our mission at Alva is to create a fair and efficient job market. And we do that by helping companies to more effectively identify which candidates have the highest likelihood of success in the recruitment process. So practically speaking, what we do is today, via our candidate assessment platform, help recruiters and hiring managers really to evaluate and sort of assess and understand each candidate's sort of long-term potential. So really like the fundamental traits of you as a human being, really, your personality, your problem-solving skills, and sort of logical ability. The sort of core fundamental traits that we know are, reliable and really predictive of long-term success in any role, really. So the sort of key value propositions you get from using our product is you save a ton of time in especially like the early candidate screening phase. You will over time really improve hiring success, and also by limiting bias, by making more sort of data-driven and structured decisions in your recruitment process, you will end up making lots of improvements on talent diversity across the spectrum, and really creating also like a fast, transparent, and fair candidate experience, which is really, I think, the core in all of this. The fairness and the diversity is really about making the candidate come through as well as possible and in a objective and fair manner, right?
Yeah, and the recruiter or hiring manager, they're the ones that are determining what questions are going into those assessments and like how to weight them.
No, so that's all Alva. So we'll do that all for you. So essentially, you define the role that you're hiring for, and we'll help you to pick sort of the role profile to assess against, and we'll ultimately sort of bring through the candidates, have them go through the assessments, and give you sort of decision support based on that sort of automatic and more mechanic evaluation of the candidates against that sort of profile and role.
Got it. Makes sense. So what are some of the types of questions that you're screening for within that evaluation portal?
Right. So on the personality side, it's based on this scientific framework within psychometrics, which is called the Big Five, the most widely sort of used personality assessment framework, and it's been used for decades, really. And that's not a Alva product. It's really like an open source research product. where you essentially assess for things like conscientiousness or openness to experience and things like that, and to a varying degree depending on the role that you're hiring for, sort of different ranges of these personality traits will be more or less important, and sort of then combining that to with a logical ability, which really assesses sort of the ability to learn new skills, problem solving on a sort of more general basis.
Got it. Makes sense. Have you narrowed down who the target customer profile is for Alva, or are you keeping it relatively broad to just any type of recruiter?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and something that we discuss often within the team. So today we work with anything from the small few, the small team really, the small startup perhaps, up to a few larger enterprise companies in the Nordics and Scandis. However, our sweet spot is really, and also telling from our customer base, the typical scale up, so mid-sized companies, hiring, growing fast, hiring quite a lot, high volumes on both roles and also candidates, where the companies also really looking to sort of standardize the hiring process in a better way across the company, which is can be especially painful, right, when you're growing fast in a startup or scale up. So yeah, really that sort of digital native SME to mid-sized company growing fast, and looking to hire the best talent is really the sweet spot.
Makes sense. So you guys said that you've been around for 5 years or so. Sounds like you're growing relatively fast right now, but you want to talk a little bit more about how you acquired your first customer and just getting over the cold start problem?
Right. Yeah. So I think in hindsight, I think that was actually not that big of a thing or issue that we thought a lot about. Like we kind of just put together a first deck and really simple prototype. I believe the first one was really like in a spreadsheet and a PowerPoint presentation, and kind of just went out and spoke to customers. And one thing led to another, and we suddenly had this first company willing to actually pay for that prototype, and that ended up being the first customer which we eventually actually built the product for, and then we kind of took it from there. So really on a one customer at a time kind of thing, and sort of validating both the problem space but our ideas around the solution really early on, before there were literally any lines of codes written.
Yeah. How many customer outreach efforts like that you did you do? Like, did you have to reach out to like 100 customers in order to get your first one, or just trying to understand that funnel a little bit better?
Right. No, so I think the hit rate early days was fairly high. I can't recall the exact numbers, but we really went out via our sort of personal networks in the beginning, like companies we knew or people we knew, and perhaps the person we initiated a conversation with wasn't ultimately the right, nor the user or a potential buyer, but that person kind of sort of led us to the right sort of proper user or decision maker. And I think one insight back then was really that like people are generally quite sort of open to help someone out trying to build something, was my perception at least. So quite a lot of people are curious and excited about new things, and just excited to hear a new perspective or a new idea of how to solve a particular problem. So I think it's quite can you manage to have that conversation in a good way? I think many people are sort of willing to help. That's my experience at least.
Totally makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, but what is one piece of advice you give to someone that's starting a company today?
So I mean, there's tons of advice or like mistakes that we made that I would urge people to think about. But if it's only one, I think once you've sort of gotten something off the ground and you're kind of taking the first steps to grow that initial team and business, really, when you have call it the early signs of some kind of product market fit, if you will. Also, given what we do at Alva, I really think that you as the founder should really think long and hard about your recruitment process, even for the first few hires. You could argue like the first, when you're a super small team, 1, 2, 3, 4 founders, adding your first to fifth employee, each of those individuals will be like pivotal for the sort of impact to the company and trajectory in the early days. Typically in the beginning, you don't have much capital, which means you don't have that much time. So you kind of need to make each swing at the ball count. So really thinking long and hard about sort of running that first recruitment process really diligently, and from our perspective, really focusing and emphasizing on what we talk about as like the long-term potential, right? And not just blindly going after that shiny CV, which might be looking good, but in the beginning it's really a lot of hustle, and everyone needs to do a little bit of everything. So you need people that are really willing to work hard and can solve all those many problems in the beginning.
Yeah, you guys obviously use Alva when you're hiring internally, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's been a game changer.
Yeah, totally. What is one small change that you've made that's made a big difference in your life or in the business?
Yeah, so I think the one small change I made was about a year ago. I started seeing a professional coach, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe at least the perception I have is that that's a lot more common in the States than in Europe, and especially in Sweden. Like I barely thought that was a thing you could do as a early stage founder. But for me, and I really think that's a shame, and I wish I had done that way before. And for me, that's been a game changer for not only my well-being, I think also my sort of professional and personal development in the journey going from 3 founders to now 50, 60 employees and growing, and also my family life. So building a company is really tough, and at least it feels like you're facing existential threats on a daily or weekly basis. And you kind of need to cope with all of that, focus, prioritize, be paranoid, but still not let everything, eat you up, because odds are stacked against you. So you can, it can be a bleak picture at points, at times. And at the same time, I have 2 kids. I want to be a great husband and father to my children and be present. And, there's many things you want to do really well. So for me, that's been, I spend 2 hours each month, and it's just so helpful and valuable to get, outside perspective, someone that's, questioning your, opinions or fears or emotions even. So yeah, I think that's something I would really recommend anyone, and I wish I had done it years ago.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I've talked to a handful of other founders in the States, and it seems like it is pretty common here.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it just wasn't accepted as much in Europe, or just wasn't as popular.
Right. Or it is, and but people just don't talk about it. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But yeah, it seems like everybody I've talked to has the same reaction. It's this is just such a valuable ROI investment for
Right.
it.
Exactly. And I think, because it's kind of in the same bucket as, you know, seeing a psychologist. Like, at least my perception of the Swedish norm is that it's somewhat stigmatized, and I think that everyone should do that, like, proactively. And this is one of those things that I think start earlier than later.
Totally agree. And then last question I had for you is, if you had one ask for our listeners, what would it be?
Yeah, so I think depending on sort of your capacity, if you're a founder or manager or early employee or investor, I think really to think and look beyond, you know, the resume when hiring and scaling your team. We believe it's all about hiring people and not CVs, and you'll build, you know, a better, stronger, more diverse and dynamic team, and also really making an impact. So yeah, hire people, not CVs.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. Well, cool, man. That wraps up all the questions I had. I told you I didn't want to eat up too much of your time.
Awesome.
Anything else that I can help with before we have to jump off here?
No, it was great. Thanks a lot, Clay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess last point, bravo on a great product. I'm a happy and engaged user since, I don't know, a year or two, and love it. So you guys are doing a great job.
Love it, man. I will send that shout out to our product team. I wish I could take more credit for that, but all falls on them.
Everyone should take credit for it.
Yeah, totally. Sounds good, man. I appreciate it again. It's been awesome.
Thanks a lot, Clay.